It was an ordinary Saturday morning when everything changed. The sun shone brightly in the sky, casting playful shadows across my driveway as I prepared for a day out. I had plans to meet some friends for brunch, and my car, my reliable little hatchback, was all set to take me there. As I gathered my belongings and made a quick check of my phone, I glanced outside, expecting to see my vehicle waiting for me, gleaming under the sunlight. But when I stepped out, a wave of confusion washed over me. The driveway was empty. I blinked hard, half expecting to see my car tucked behind the neighbor's SUV or perhaps parked just out of sight. Yet, as seconds turned into minutes, panic began to set in. There were no signs of my car anywhere. My heart raced as I tried to recall the last time I had seen it. That was when I remembered Karen, a friend who had always been a bit unpredictable. We had known each other for years, but her recent behavior had become erratic. Flashes of our last conversation surfaced in my mind. She had casually mentioned needing a ride somewhere, but at no point did she ask for permission to borrow my car. A sinking feeling hit me as it dawned on me that she might have taken it without asking again. Dread turned to determination as I reached for my phone, prepared to call her. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the car, it was about trust and boundaries that had been crossed too many times before. After several attempts to reach her yielded nothing but silence, a decision started forming in my mind. If she really took my car without permission, this would be bigger than just a simple misunderstanding. Little did I know then that this decision would lead me down an unexpected path, one where I would take action and ultimately affect both our lives in ways we never anticipated. My friendship with Karen had always been a roller coaster of highs and lows. At times, her spontaneity brought excitement to my life, but more often than not, it resulted in confusion and frustration. We had known each other since college. She was the fun-loving friend who could turn any mundane gathering into a memorable event. Yet, as the years passed, traits I once found endearing morphed into something more chaotic. There had been numerous instances where Karen crossed boundaries that left me feeling unsettled. It wasn't just small annoyances, her impulsiveness often spilled over into our daily lives. I recalled the time she borrowed my favorite jacket for a party, only to lose it at a bar without even mentioning it until weeks later. When I finally confronted her, she brushed it off as a minor detail, a harmless mistake, she claimed. But to me, it was emblematic of a pattern, her disregard for my belongings and her tendency to make light of serious matters. The tension escalated when she began casually discussing her financial struggles. I wanted to help, but Karen's requests frequently came with strings attached. She would ask if she could use my car for a quick errand, only for hours to pass without any communication. Each time, I felt my trust corroding just a little more, until I was left wondering if she truly valued our friendship or merely saw me as someone who could lend her resources. As I stood in the empty driveway that morning, the realization that Karen could have taken my car without asking felt like the culmination of all those frustrations. It wasn't merely about the vehicle, it was about respect and mutual understanding. In that quiet moment of panic, all our unresolved issues surged to the forefront of my mind, igniting a fierce determination within me to confront her actions head-on. The stakes were higher now, and I knew things had to change between us. The moment I stepped outside and saw the empty driveway, a chill ran down my spine. My heart raced as disbelief morphed into panic. I dashed back into the house, frantically checking all the windows and even peering down the street, half hoping to see my car parked nearby. Maybe I just misremembered where I left it, I kept telling myself, though deep down, I was already confronting the worst possibility. After pacing back and forth for a few moments, I pulled up my phone, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through my recent texts for any sign from Karen. Nothing. I shot her a quick message, asking if she had borrowed my car. Each passing second felt like an eternity, the silence growing heavier as I replayed our last interaction in my mind. Hadn't she mentioned needing a ride the previous week? The gnawing dread intensified as I recalled her evasive responses in the past and how she had downplayed her reliance on me. Deciding that waiting wasn't an option, I grabbed my keys and headed towards what felt like a hopeful search for my car. I walked to nearby blocks, scanning every parked vehicle with increasing desperation. As I strolled along, the neighborhood that usually felt familiar began to seem unwelcoming, a labyrinth where I might never find my hatchback again. With each empty street corner and overlooked driveway, frustration bubbled within me. It wasn't just about the car, it was about the betrayal underlying the situation. I felt foolish for trusting someone who had repeatedly tested my patience and boundaries. After what felt like an exhausting hour, still no sign of my vehicle. Finally, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat, I faced a hard truth: if she had taken it without asking, I needed to take action. The decision to report my car stolen loomed before me like a dark cloud, but it felt increasingly unavoidable as anger began to overshadow my fear. If everything else failed, maybe this would force a resolution, or at least provide some answers. As I sat on the edge of my bed, my heart still racing from the frantic search, I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. The absence of my car felt like a betrayal that cut deeper than just the loss of property. Here was someone I had considered a friend for years, yet she had crossed a line that left me questioning everything about our relationship. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about a missing vehicle, it was a blatant disregard for my trust and boundaries. Each past incident with Karen flashed in my mind like an unwanted slideshow, her casual borrowing without asking, her dismissive attitude when confronted, and now, potentially taking my car without permission. It seemed as if I had been patient for too long, giving her chance after chance while she continued to take liberties with my generosity. The thought of reporting my car stolen filled me with dread. I imagined the judgment from the police when I explained the situation. How could I admit that a friend might have taken it? Would they laugh or dismiss me? Yet, the alternative felt equally unbearable. Allowing this to slide would only reinforce her belief that it was acceptable to manipulate our friendship for her benefit. With each passing moment, anger began to eclipse the fear and hesitation. If she had indeed taken my car without even a hint of consideration for my feelings, then perhaps reporting it was not just necessary, it was essential for reclaiming my agency in this situation. I envisioned how liberating it would feel to take control instead of being at her mercy. Taking a deep breath, I picked up my phone once more and dialed the police station. As the line connected, my resolve solidified. This decision marked a turning point. It was time to stand up for myself and put an end to this unsettling cycle once and for all. As the phone call ended, I felt a mixture of nervousness and resolve. The police were surprisingly accommodating when I explained the situation, asking for all the pertinent details about my car, including the make, model, color, and license plate numbers. With each piece of information I provided, the weight of my decision settled in deeper. This was not just a report, it felt like a declaration of my boundaries being crossed. When I arrived at the station, the atmosphere was charged with seriousness yet tinged with an oddly comforting familiarity. A friendly officer greeted me and led me to a small interview room, a far cry from what I had anticipated. He seemed genuinely empathetic as I described the ongoing issues with Karen, detailing her previous impulsive behaviors and boundary violations. "What makes you think she took it?" he inquired, leaning back slightly as he took notes. I hesitated for a moment, grappling with how to express this complicated relationship. "I just know her," I finally replied. "This isn't the first time she's borrowed something without asking first, but she's never taken my car before. I can't shake the feeling that she did it this time." The officer nodded, clearly processing what I shared. He asked if there were any mutual friends who could corroborate my accounts or if there were previous incidents that might also matter. Each question forced me to confront how deep this issue ran. It wasn't merely about a missing car but a pattern of unsettling behavior that had become too familiar. Once the report was completed, the officer assured me they would look into it immediately. The gravity of my decision weighed heavily upon me as I walked out of the station. Part of me was relieved to finally take control, while another part was filled with anxiety over what would come next. As I stood outside, physically drained and emotionally raw, I realized that this process marked more than just reporting a car stolen. It was a pivotal moment in my life where I chose to prioritize my own well-being over the turmoil of my friendship with Karen. As I walked away from the police station, the weight of my decision began to settle heavily on my shoulders. A mix of relief and anxiety swirled within me, a strange cocktail of emotions that left me feeling unsettled. I had taken a powerful step by filing the report, yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead loomed like a dark shadow. In the immediate aftermath, reality set in hard. I couldn't shake the nagging worry about what would happen next. Would the police find my car quickly, or would this drag on indefinitely? What if Karen was innocent, or worse, what if she was angry at me for involving the authorities? Each potential outcome seemed to spiral into worse scenarios, filling my mind with doubt. The thought of Karen faced with legal consequences filled me with an unexpected guilt. She was still my friend, after all. Despite everything, a part of me felt sadness for her predicament. Would this incident forever change her life? I could already picture her sitting in a holding cell, confused and upset, and the image gnawed at my conscience. But then again, how could she have put me in this position? My sense of betrayal battled against my empathy, creating a storm within me that felt impossible to calm. I also feared the ripple effects this decision would have on our mutual friends. How would they react when they found out? Would they side with me or think I overreacted? The thought of navigating those conversations made my stomach churn. I felt as if I had thrown a stone into a pond, and now I was anxiously waiting to see just how far the ripples would spread. Driving home in silence, I tried to block out the noise in my head. Each passing vehicle felt like a reminder of what I no longer had, my car, and what I risked losing further, my friendship with Karen. Was I prepared to live with the consequences of my actions? The answer eluded me, but in that moment, I knew one thing for certain: I had crossed a line, and there was no turning back now. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon when I received the unexpected phone call that would change everything. The officer's voice on the other end was calm yet firm as he identified himself, sending a shiver down my spine. "We've located your vehicle," he said, pausing as if gauging my reaction. My heart leaped, but before I could express relief, he continued, "And we've arrested Karen." A mix of emotions flooded over me: shock, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of dread. How could it have come to this? I had reported the car stolen in a moment of frustration and felt justified in my decision, but hearing that Karen had been apprehended felt surreal. The officer explained that they found her driving my car in a neighborhood several miles away from mine. She hadn't intended to evade them but had failed to stop when signaled. As he elaborated on the circumstances surrounding her arrest, I felt my stomach twist. Apparently, Karen had given them a convoluted story about borrowing the car without my permission because she was in a bind. The officer recounted how she seemed anxious and defensive during questioning, which left him concerned about her state of mind. I could almost hear her indignant voice in my head: "I was just borrowing it." But the reality was different now. This wasn't just an innocent misunderstanding anymore, it was a legal matter. "What happens next?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The officer outlined the process. Paperwork would need to be filed, and there would likely be charges related to theft. As he talked through the logistics, I could hardly concentrate. I felt as if I were spiraling through real-life consequences of our friendship unraveling. After hanging up, emotions roiled within me: anger at Karen for putting both of us in this situation mingled with guilt for reporting her in the first place. My mind raced with questions. Would this mark the end of our friendship? Could she forgive me? Yet deep down, I knew there was no turning back now. Things had escalated far beyond what I had ever anticipated. In the days following Karen's arrest, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I felt a sense of justice. Reporting my car stolen had been a necessary step to reclaim my boundaries, and seeing Karen held accountable for her actions gave me a fleeting sense of validation. Yet, that sense of justice was quickly overshadowed by an aching sadness. This wasn't just a legal matter, it was the unraveling of a friendship that had once brought so much joy into my life. As I replayed the events in my mind, I couldn't help but wonder if I had done the right thing. Did I really want to see Karen face legal consequences, or was I simply reacting to a betrayal? The line between justice and revenge blurred as I thought about how impulsively I had acted in my frustration. The idea that my decision could lead to lasting repercussions for someone I once considered a friend weighed heavily on me. I found myself questioning the nature of our relationship. Was it built on genuine friendship, or had it been more transactional, defined by her willingness to take what she needed without regard for my feelings? While I had chosen to stand up for myself, I also felt the bitterness of loss creeping in. What had once been a bond filled with laughter and shared experiences now felt like a fragile thread, fraying with each passing moment. Standing at the crossroads of justice and personal connection was disheartening. I desired accountability for the wrongs done to me, yet the thought of Karen facing serious consequences made my heart ache. It forced me to confront the uncomfortable reality that sometimes, seeking justice can come at the expense of personal relationships. As I navigated this emotional landscape, I realized that healing would require more than just reclaiming my car. It would demand a reckoning with what our friendship had meant to me and what it might mean going forward. In the days following Karen's arrest, I began to learn more about the legal ramifications she faced. The police informed me that she would likely be charged with unauthorized use of a vehicle, which could lead to fines and possibly even community service or probation, depending on her past record. I found myself anxiously awaiting updates, wondering how this would unfold and whether Karen would take responsibility for her actions. As news of her arrest spread among our mutual friends, reactions were mixed. Some expressed concern for Karen, worried about the impact this would have on her life. They reached out to me with sympathy but also with an undercurrent of accusation, questioning whether I had done the right thing by reporting her. "Couldn't you have just talked it out?" one friend texted, and I felt my stomach twist at their judgment. My decision felt scrutinized, and I was left grappling with heavy emotions once more. Meanwhile, other friends were less supportive of Karen. They echoed my frustrations and sided with me, insisting that I had set a necessary precedent for accountability. It was unsettling to witness friendships fracturing over this incident. Connections that had once felt solid now seemed fragile and volatile. I worried about being caught in the middle as allegiances shifted. Family members had their own opinions as well. My parents, while sympathetic to my plight, urged me to consider how these events might affect Karen's future. "You need to think long and hard about the consequences of your actions," my father cautioned. Their advice felt like a double-edged sword. while I understood their concern for both Karen and myself, it only added to my own internal conflict. Days turned into weeks without any communication from Karen herself. I wondered if she was grappling with guilt or anger, perhaps both, over the situation. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced with anticipation and dread. Would it be a message from her pleading for forgiveness or an update from the police? The uncertainty weighed heavily on me. I realized that whatever happened next would define not just our friendship but also who we were individually moving forward. As I reflected on the tumultuous events surrounding Karen's arrest, it became clear that this experience had catalyzed significant personal growth within me. It forced me to confront and reevaluate the lessons I had learned about trust and boundaries, a necessary reckoning after a friendship that had long been fraught with complications. Prior to this incident, I had often prioritized maintaining harmony in my relationships, even at the expense of my own feelings. I had allowed Karen's impulsiveness and disregard for my belongings to slide, hoping that a lenient approach would preserve our connection. However, the fallout from her actions revealed the importance of setting clear boundaries. I realized that trusting someone involves more than just assuming they will act in good faith. It requires open communication and mutual respect. This incident also reshaped my perspective on accountability. Initially, I struggled with guilt over reporting Karen, fearing that my actions would irrevocably damage our friendship. Yet, as the days passed, I began to see the necessity of accountability, not only for her sake but also for mine. Standing up for myself by reporting the car theft was not merely an act of revenge, it was a crucial step toward reclaiming agency over my life and possessions. It illuminated the fine line between supporting friends and enabling harmful behavior. Moreover, the experience taught me about the fragility of relationships and the consequences of unresolved issues. Friendships can shift dramatically under pressure, revealing their true nature. As friends rallied around me or distanced themselves from Karen, I recognized how easily lines can blur between loyalty and justice. Ultimately, I emerged from this ordeal with a renewed understanding of what healthy friendships should look like, ones rooted in respect, honesty, and shared values. While the road to healing with Karen remains uncertain, I am now more equipped to navigate the complexities of relationships with a newfound clarity about my own needs and boundaries. This experience has transformed me into someone who values self-advocacy without compromising compassion, paving the way for healthier connections in my life moving forward. As I navigated the aftermath of my experience with Karen, I couldn't help but feel that I had emerged stronger and more self-aware. This journey taught me invaluable lessons about the importance of standing up for oneself, even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. Prior to this incident, I often prioritized others' needs over my own, sacrificing my well-being for the sake of maintaining harmony. Now, however, I understood that true friendship is rooted in mutual respect and open communication. Moving forward, I vowed to approach new relationships with renewed clarity. I recognize that boundaries are not just necessary, they are essential for cultivating healthy connections. With each interaction, I aim to communicate my expectations clearly, ensuring that others understood my limits from the beginning. This would not only protect me but also foster relationships where both parties felt valued and heard. I also learned the significance of accountability, not just in holding friends responsible for their actions but in being accountable to myself. No longer would I allow fear of conflict to silence my voice or compromise my values. In recognizing that standing up for myself does not equate to animosity, I found a balanced approach, advocating for my needs while remaining open-hearted and compassionate. As I opened myself up to new friendships, I noticed positive changes ripple through my social interactions. Friends responded with newfound respect as they recognized that I was no longer willing to tolerate behaviors that undermined our connection. Existing relationships grew stronger as well. Those who truly cared about me adapted and evolved alongside my newfound assertiveness. Ultimately, while the situation with Karen left scars that may take time to heal, it also laid the groundwork for a deeper understanding of myself and what I deserve from others. I stepped into this new chapter of my life armed with experience and confidence, sure in the knowledge that healthy relationships are built on trust, boundaries, and an unwavering commitment to self-advocacy. As daunting as change can be, I now faced it with a renewed sense of purpose and clarity about how to nurture connections that genuinely enrich my life.